Okay. Okay, this is the syllabus that you probably have seen. It's on the website. It's on Canvas. This is Psych 25531, Section 31, Physiological Psych, Spring 2025. This is me. Yeah, there you go. This is where I live, Lost Nation, Iowa. There's my telephone number if you need to call me, but probably the best way of communicating with me is during office hours. And there's my office hour um, using Zoom. And there's the Zoom number. Will not change. My grandson's playing seventh grade basketballs, and he has basketball games on Mondays and Thursdays, so the office hours are a little bit interesting. On Mondays and Thursdays, they're in the morning from 8 to 10 Mountain Standard Time, and on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they're in the afternoon, 3 to 5 Mountain Standard Time. I'm actually an hour ahead of you, so it's a little bit different time here. The textbook, as I showed you before, is Breedlove and Watson, Behavioral Neuroscience. I actually changed the name of it back, I don't know, about 10 years ago to Behavioral Neuroscience. It was Biological Psychology before. Anyway, not important. Okay, good textbook, the best one that I've ever seen. And there's the assignments. Okay, I expect you to do article critiques. What I'm looking for is research in the area, dealing with all of the different aspects that we're going to be talking about: biological psychology, functional neuroanatomy, neurophysiology, chemistry of behavior, hormones of the brain, that on and on and on and on. Let's see if you can find a research article that deals in that topic, and then you need to answer the questions for the article critiques. And I will show you where the questions are in just a second. Okay, so how do we pass the class? Well, you do your article critiques. There is, there will be a quiz with each chapter. And there's 18 chapters. Is that right? I don't think it's quite that high. I think there's probably 14 quizzes, library paper on something, some aspect of physiological psychology, and then doing the article critiques. And I show you how to do article critiques. You might think, oh, great, he's got a big gray cat. Well, this gray cat is a pain in the butt. The only reason he's here is because he knows I won't move him because I'm talking to you guys. Anyway, now he's leaving. There he goes. He's a pain in the butt, like I said. So the library paper should be 5 pages long. You need 5 references. And I do count lines. So if you've got 5 pages, you think, oh, it's 5 pages. You better count lines. 23 lines per page times 5 is 115 lines of text. And I don't count well, anyway. I need 23 lines per page. Let's go down to the article critiques. Why are we going so slow? Okay, the article critique, you need to answer all these questions. You need the title of the article. You need to summarize it. That should all be in the abstract. What is the hypothesis should be in the abstract. Type of study, is it a qualitative, quantitative, or a mixture of qualitative and quantitative research? Uh, Describe the target population and the sample. If there is not a population, if they didn't do research looking at specific things like how many people did it, how many rats did they were they looking at, then it's probably not a research article. So you need to have a sample, and there needs to be a specific number. Okay. How did they select the population? You just need to answer all of these questions. And that's your article critique. So why are we doing this? Well, for one thing, I need you to be able to read a research article. And the best way to learn to read a research article is by doing an article critique. How do I know this? Well, how do I know this? When I was teaching in another institution, I had them do article critiques. And of course, they complained and complained and complained and complained. I'll never do this. Why in the world am I doing this? And then when those students went away to graduate school, they said, you know, the thing that you made us do that taught us the most that was the most useful thing that we could do was doing the article critiques, because it taught us how to read a research article. And most of the people just looked at abstract, and here we were trying to figure out whether the article was a good article or not. And we looked at all the other aspects of it. We found the sample. We found tried to figure out if that was enough people for the sample. Anyway, so that's why I have you do the article critiques. And that should be it. Okay, so let's talk about doing things on time and using ChatGPT or AI. There's a lot of AIs out there, and you can get them to do just about anything. I don't know if you can get them to do article critiques or not. But if you think you're going to skate through this class using AI and ChatGPT to do all your work for you, don't. Because I'm trying to teach you how to think. And when you use AI and ChatGPT, you ain't thinking. You're letting some robot do your thinking for you. And I need you to learn to think. Okay. So I consider it cheating to use these things. I probably won't accuse you, but between the two of us, we know that you've used ChatGPT. The thing about using ChatGPT, the grammar's correct. That's really nice. And if you let them do all your thinking for you, sometimes they say some pretty stupid things. We've had problems with AI in the past. Of course, they're trying to get robots to drive cars, and they have discovered that they make bad decisions. So if you use ChatGPT, that's a bad decision. There we go. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's do today's lecture. What? Yeah, let's see. There we go. Okay, chapter 1 of what is this textbook? Behavioral Neuroscience by Breedlove and Watson. Maybe. There we go. Okay. Biological psychology seeks to explain behavior in terms of its underlying physiology, its development, its evolution, and its function. A central premise of biological psychology is that bodily processes, particularly those of the nervous system, are the basis of all behavior. Biological psychology is multidisciplinary in scope, and it draws on knowledge produced in diverse scientific fields in an effort to produce integrated descriptions of the generation of behavior. And this is done by psychologists, biologists, physiologists, engineers, and neurologists. So biological psychology is not just a psychology field. Biological psychology takes input from all kinds of people: biologists, physiologists, engineers, and neurologists. One of the beauties of this class, and one of the reasons I'm teaching this class, is because I have a background not only in psychology, but I also have a background in medicine. I was a laboratory technician for 30 years, a medical laboratory technician, which meant that not only did I get to draw blood, but I also analyzed the blood I did hematology, chemistry, if a bacteria, if a specimen came in, I could do microbiology, mycology for fungus. What else was there? Urinalysis, parasitology. I did everything. That's the job of a psychologist. It's not a psychologist. That's a job of a medical laboratory technician. So I got to see a lot of different things over many years, over 30 years working in medicine, and that gave me a really strong background, not only in biology, but also in physiology. There's nothing like being in the trenches, helping people, and that was my job. So biological psychology gets input from all of these different areas: anthropology, evolutionary biology, paleontology, anatomy, developmental biology, molecular biology, endocrinology, immunology, biochemistry, physiology, neurology, psychiatry, and computer science and cognitive science. So there you go. I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of people feeding into the same area, and that's where all this information comes from. Oh, I can't. I'd forgotten. Okay, yeah, this is what my second wife looked like. For some reason, when I was taking this class, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, somebody asked me, well, what's your second wife look like? That's what she looked like right there. Okay. I don't know. I have no idea why I put that picture. Yeah, I've got to take that one out. Okay. This requires analysis of. I've been married 3 times, and that's what my second wife looked like. That wasn't my second wife. I don't have a picture of her. Well, I do have pictures of her, but I don't know. They're not on the internet. This requires analysis at many different levels, from molecular to macro activity to interaction with the environment. So when something happens, it starts out at the micro level of neurons in the brain reacting, and then of course you get the physical reaction, and it goes through the whole process. And this is happening continually with us as we are talking to people or reacting to a situation. This whole process is taking place. 5 viewpoints of the biology of behavior. 1, describing the behavior. What did you do? You found out when you found out that somebody died. You need to describe the behavior that you had. You either had a reaction to it, you didn't have a reaction to it. You studied the evolution of the behavior. For example, you found out somebody died. Did you begin grieving? That's really interesting. I just had this conversation with my dean because his grieving process is totally different from mine. I'm really old. I'm 75 years old. He's in his 40s. So when he found out that Dr. Russell had died, his reaction was totally different. Dr. Russell was a relative of his. Dr. Russell's not a relative of mine. Our reactions were totally different. I've been around for a really long time, so I've watched a lot of people die. I was about 2/3 of my high school graduating class have died because, I'm 75 years old, so we graduated from high school almost 60 years ago. Yeah, almost 60 years ago. So most of those people are gone. About half of my college graduating class has passed away as well. So the whole grieving process. If I went into a grieving process every time I found out that somebody died, you can imagine how much I would be grieving continually. So my process is a little bit different than my dean. And where I'm from, we may grieve differently than you do in the Navajo Nation. Observing the development of the behavior and its biological characteristics over the lifespan. And of course, I've lost my parents. I'm 75. My parents would have to be in their hundreds at this point. My mother was born in 1915. My father was born in 1918. I've had a sister that has passed away. She was born in 1944. Um, how have I grieved over my lifespan? And that's one of the things that you need to see as well. Maybe people where I come from don't grieve the same way, and they don't. They certainly don't. Having worked in hospitals for over 30 years, I observed how different religions and how different racial and ethnic groups react to death. Some people celebrate death. They don't celebrate death. They celebrate the life of the person that has died. Other individuals go into deep mourning, mourning, and some people never recover from people that have died. Of course, you can't do that very much. Anyway, studying the biological mechanisms of the behavior, studying applications of biological psychology, for example, dysfunctions, lack of function, and of course, that's what we do. Actually, I was studying grieving um, a number of years ago, that for my dissertation, and one of the things I discovered was that most people don't become depressed during when they grieve. The vast majority of people don't. As you can imagine, you couldn't possibly maintain that over an extended length of time. So the grieving process is very different in with different religions. It's very different with Americans, with people in the United States. They did a study looking at how people grieved after 9/11, and what they discovered was that the vast majority of people bounced right back. Um, is that right? Is that wrong? Well, for Americans, that's right. If we were in, I don't know, if we were in the Middle East, maybe they felt that we didn't react uh, negatively enough. That's not the way you grieve. You have to go into mourning. You have to in the well, we're going and I talk about this in lifespan development, how different groups react to death. Jewish people, they tear their clothing. They tear an article of their clothing and they wear it that way for the rest of the day, so that people can see that they're grieving. What else do they do? If it is a spouse or if it's one of their children that has died, they cut their hair. They cut their hair short, and they will leave their hair short until they get over the grieving. Um, I used to work on the Fort Belknap Reservation up in Montana, and they held wakes when an individual died. So they set the casket up in the gymnasium, and people would come and view the person and view uh, the dead person for 2 or 3 days, and then they would uh, and they would always say they would talk about some of the happy things that they knew about the person. Well, back when he was 15 years old, he was riding a horse and he fell off into a um, uh, patch of poison ivy, and he swore about that. He for the rest of his life he always said negative things about the horse that threw him off and into the poison. That kind of thing, funny things. So it's very much different. And sometimes uh, the longer they're grieving, they won't powwow. They won't dance at a powwow. And then the rule is that you can grieve for a year, and after a year, you have to be danced back into the powwow circle, and that's the way it works. Some relative will come and take their hand at a powwow, and they will dance them back into the circle. That's the way it works. There you go. Before a scientist can do any research on biological functioning, they must decide and describe the function that they will research. By comparing species, scientists can speculate how behavior and neural structure have changed as species have evolved. And of course, this is a human brain. This is a gorilla brain. This is a chimpanzee's brain, and this is a monkey's brain. So as primates have evolved from lemurs, this is a lemur, all the way up to humans, how has the brain changed its structure? As an individual grows, they develop the ability to respond to stimuli. As the organism becomes more and more complex and other variables are introduced, behavior and response will change. This is known as ontogeny, how an individual changes over a lifetime. Ontogeny, I apologize for almost mispronouncing that. The history of a species tells us the evolutionary determinants of its behavior. The history of an individual tells us the developmental determinants. The scientist must regard the organism as a machine made up of billions of neurons. And this is a picture. So when you look at this picture, they've mapped what your eyes focus on. And the two main areas that people's eyes focus on are the eyes and the ears, as interesting as that is. A major goal of biological psychology is to use research findings to improve the health and well-being of humans and other animals. Numerous human diseases involve malfunctioning of the brain, and this is an individual suffering from Down syndrome, and this is what they have. This is what they look like today, and this is what they looked like when they were younger. And this is they're talking about an intellectual deficit that this individual suffers from. So how have they functioned throughout their lives? How have they malfunctioned during their lives? There are 3 ways to look at brain behavior relations. Somatic intervention, changes in the body. Anything soma means body. Changes in the body changes behavior. Behavioral intervention, psychological changes occur, and this changes the body structure or function. And correlation, how do changes in the somatic variables affect behavioral variables? And of course, those are the 3 ways that we look at things. The body, the way the person reacts to it, and how the two go together. If we increase testosterone in a male, will it increase his sexual response? This has been A question that we've been asking for centuries. When we discovered that there was such a thing as testosterone, why is this guy, why does this guy want to have sex all the time, and why doesn't this guy want to have sex all the time? Is it the fact that one of them has a higher testosterone than the other? Can we cause the effect by electrically stimulating his brain? Is there an area in the brain that controls sexual response? If we cut his vagus nerve, will he lack sexual response? And there are answers to all three of these. Yes, if we increase a male's testosterone, as a matter of fact, if we increase a female's testosterone, her sexual response will increase, and so will his. Can we cause the effect by electrically stimulating his brain? Yes, there is an area in the brain that is the sexual response. If we cut the vagus nerve, will he lack sexual response? And the answer is yep, that's the job of the vagus nerve. If we put two adults of opposite sex together, will it lead to an increased secretion of certain hormones? And the answer is yes, especially if they are heterosexual and one is male and one is female. It's just the way it works. Males and females react to one another. They react to one another with hormones. Whether they are sexually attracted to each other, that doesn't really affect the fact that just being around another person of the opposite sex will increase your hormones. Can we change blood flow to the brain with select visual stimuli? And of course, that is obviously true, and that's one of the reasons that pornography is so popular, because it changes the blood flow to the brain. And it changes the blood flow to the brain of that area. Remember that electrical stimulation of a certain area of the brain? That is the area that is affected by visual stimuli. If we change the circumstance of the interaction to include danger stimulation, will it cause a change in the response of the individuals? And yes, if we increase the adrenaline level, that will increase the stimulation, the sexual stimulation, as weird as that sounds. So danger, Will Robinson, makes people sexually stimulated to an extent. Looking at people with frequent sexual response, will we find higher levels of hormones with individuals who have higher levels of sexual response? Can we correlate high levels of hormones with frequent sexual response? And the answer to both of them is yes. The human brain and its peripheral neuronal structures can change with stimulation from the environment. This is known as neuroplasticity. Parts of the neurons called dendritic spines seem to be in constant motion and can change shape in a matter of seconds. And this is how we learn things. And sometimes we need to learn things very, very rapidly. Let's say that somebody's shooting at you. You have to learn to duck. How quickly do people learn to duck when somebody's shooting at them? The answer is very, very quickly. Hopefully, otherwise they get shot. And this is one of the first things you learn in combat is to duck. And if you are told to move forward, your natural response would be to go the other way, to try to get away. But of course, one of the things that you are trained in the military is to go forward toward the shooting instead of away from the shooting. In a very real way, other individuals can affect change on the structure of an individual's brain. Stimulation will induce neuronal growth. Lack of stimulation will retard neuronal growth. So if you practice something, it will increase the neuronal growth. The more you practice something, and what you're doing right now, listening to me doing this lecture, it's stimulating a neuronal growth in your brain. You're learning things, and when you learn things, all those dendritic spines are moving around, going, "Oh, okay, this this little piece of information is important. Oh, did you hear what he said about grieving? Oh, good. Okay, that's now we know that when Jewish people, someone dies and a Jewish person's that a Jewish person knows, they rip their clothes, and if is someone that they're related to, then they will cut their hair. Men will cut their hair. Women actually will cut their hair as well, but not they don't like shave their heads. And men usually don't shave their heads. They usually get a fairly short haircut. Researchers have been able to induce the brains of human subjects to be more active by suggesting to select individuals that water that they would be dipping their hands in would be hot. And so they did, the experiment had to do with saying, be careful of that water, it's hot. And them dipping their hands in the water, and despite the fact that it was lukewarm, they would pop their hands out because they thought it was too hot to put their hands in. And so their brains had told them that it's too hot, and despite the fact that it wasn't, they felt that it was too hot. Okay. Subjects who did not experience the suggestion had less active brain activity and reported less discomfort from the water. And that is let's see what this is. Oh, yeah.
Being human. We each view ourselves as a unique and independent individual. But we're never alone. Millions of microscopic beings inhabit our bodies, and no two bodies are the same. Each is a different habitat for microbial communities, from the arid deserts of our skin to the villages on our lips and the cities in our mouths. Even every tooth is its own distinctive neighborhood. And our guts are teeming metropolises of interacting microbes. And in these bustling streets of our guts, we see a constant influx of food, and every microbe has a job to do. Here's a cellulitic bacteria, for example. Their one job is to break down cellulose, a common compound in vegetables, into sugars. Those simple sugars then move along to the respirators, another set of microbes that snatch up these simple sugars and burn them as fuel. As food travels through our digestive tract, it reaches the fermenters who extract energy from these sugars by converting them into chemicals like alcohol and hydrogen gas, which they spew out as waste products. Deeper in the depths of our gut city, the syntrophs eke out a living off the fermenters' trash. At each step of this process, energy is released, and that energy is absorbed by the cells of the digestive tract. This city we just saw is different in everyone. Every person has a unique and diverse community of gut microbes that can process food in different ways. One person's gut microbes may be capable of releasing only a fraction of the calories that another person's gut microbes can extract. So what determines the membership of our gut microbial community? Well, things like our genetic makeup and the microbes we encounter throughout our lives can contribute to our microbial ecosystems. The food we eat also influences which microbes live in our gut. For example, food made of complex molecules like an apple requires a lot of different microbial workers to break it down. But if a food is made of simple molecules like a lollipop, some of these workers are put out of a job. Those workers leave the city, never to return. What doesn't function well are gut microbial communities with only a few different types of workers. For example, humans who suffer from diseases like diabetes or chronic gut inflammation typically have less microbial variety in their guts. We don't fully understand the best way to manage our individual microbial societies, but it is likely that lifestyle changes, such as eating a varied diet of complex plant-based foods, can help revitalize our microbial ecosystems in our gut and across the entire landscape of our body. So we are really not alone in our body. Our bodies are homes to millions of different microbes, and we need them just as much as they need us. As we learn more about how our microbes interact with each other and with our bodies, we will reveal how we can nurture this complex, invisible world that shapes our personal identity, our health, and our well-being.
Okay, there's a reason why I showed that video. About 15 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, they discovered that we all have biomes, and that's what they were talking about, all those bacteria that are in our bodies. And they actually, the type of bacteria that you have in your body will change your attitude. It'll change the way that you think. It'll make you happy. It'll make you sad. And it has to do with the bacteria and what kind of energy they put off, what kind of reaction that you get from your food. All of this has to do with your biome, and we all have different biomes. I've lived all over the world. I've eaten lots of strange things. People say, why don't you drink water? Well, the reason I don't drink water is because I've lived in places where you couldn't drink the water. You had to drink anything else. Certainly couldn't drink water. So I drink a lot of things that come out of cans. I drink. I actually where I live right now is we have well water, and the well water is pretty good. But where I was growing up in Indiana, the well water had a lot of iron in it. It also had sulfur in it, so it smelled like rotten eggs. I was going to say it smelled like a fart because I always thought it did. So you could drink the water, and the water was fine, but it just had a really funny taste. It was fairly metallic because it had so much iron in it, and it smelled like somebody farted in it. Um, okay, so I've lived in Texas. I've lived in the place that I lived in Texas. You couldn't drink the well water anyway because it had something in it that turned your teeth brown. And people would get a brown line across their teeth in that area. Where else did I live? Montana, the water was really alkaline. It's just been a real unfortunate situation. You couldn't drink the water in when I lived in Germany. You couldn't drink the water in Japan either. They didn't really have well water in Japan. It was really kind of interesting. Anyway, so a lot of places I've been, you wouldn't want to drink the water because some of it was contaminated. The reason you couldn't drink water in, wow, I don't know what I just saw, but I just saw something streaking across the sky and burning out, and it was green. That was weird. Huh. Okay. Anyway, I guess I'll find out if that was something important. What were we talking about? Water? Yeah. In Germany, you couldn't drink the water because it had tuberculosis in it, and it was fairly contaminated. Anyway, okay. Many times, psychological research follows the plan of reductionism. The researchers begin with a general behavioral reaction and then follow it through from the behavior to the central nervous system. So they're starting with a general thing and they're going to a more specific thing. Looking at the response in the brain, they locate the area of the brain affected. From the affected area, they isolate the single nerves that are affected. They then will look at chemical changes that take place in the neuron. Using the technique of reductionism, researchers can break down the complex mechanism that leads to brain malfunctions. About 19% of all Americans suffer from some form of psychiatric disorder. Another 3.2% suffer from some neurological disorder. Alzheimer's disease is the fastest growing affliction in industrialized societies. And of course, I'm a baby boomer. I'm 75 years old, so I'm a baby boomer. A lot of the people that I have interacted with are now suffering from Alzheimer's disease. They have dementia. They can't remember anything. My own sister has complained that her memory isn't as good as it once was. My memory isn't as good as it once was. Sometimes I'll be talking along and I can't think of words, simple words. They just will not come into my mind. And if I'm with my wife, she always tells me what she thinks I should have said. But if I'm not with my wife, I just kind of go, wait a minute, let me think for a second. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Alzheimer's disease, 3 million. What is this? Prevalence in neurological disorders. The most common is Alzheimer's disease. Epilepsy is second. Strokes are third. Head and spinal cord injuries, early developmental disorders, and Parkinson's disease and Huntington's disease. The incidence of psychiatric disorders, the most common problem is alcohol and drug abuse. And of course, with the opiate crisis that we have in the United States, this number is actually probably higher. So there you go. Oh no, that's not it, is it? It's anxiety is number one. Anxiety is number one. Alcohol and drug abuse is number two. Severe depression number three at 10 million. And schizophrenia is really low. It's at 1.5 million people. Much of the research dealing with psychology is done on other species. By comparing the reactions of other species, researchers are able to judge how humans will react in similar situations. 93% of the animals used in research are some form of rodent, usually rats. And these are spatially raised rats so that they don't have any genetic problems. They control the gene structure of these select individuals. And you'll read this if you read about any rodent research. Usually they'll tell you what type of rat it is. And personally, I am a little queasy around rodents. I do not like mice. I certainly don't like rats. It's one of the reasons why there are 10 cats in my house. I certainly don't have any rodents in my house. And this is a joke. This is a joke. I don't know why I put this in here. I probably ought to take it out. Causes of death in lab rats, that's all. That's a joke. A lot of cancer research, however, genetic disease research is done on rats. We can't take humans and do these things, this type of research on them. Once upon a time, we did research with primates, but primates are so close to humans that it made people irritated. That it bothered them that we were doing this to monkeys and chimpanzees. So we stopped the primate research, and now it's mostly with rats and pigeons, interestingly enough. And that is the end of chapter one. There you go. I'll try to find out what that thing streaking across the sky was. This is daylight, and you usually don't see meteors streaking across the sky during the day. But that was fascinating. Okay, I'll talk to you guys next week.